Watch this Chinese manufacturer break down the real cost of a Hermes bag.
One piece of Togo leather.
If you've ever spent 5 figures on a handbag thinking you were buying craftsmanship, this video might ruin your day. Because what if I told you that a $38,000 Hermes bag, yes, that bag, actually costs less to make than your last dentist appointment? Leather, hardware, labor, packaging, all of it. We've got the breakdown, we've got the insider, and we've got a brand scrambling to control the damage. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll see why Hermes allegedly threatened to sue the guy who dared to tell the truth. Welcome to Chatterfuse, where luxury myths come to die and celebrity scandals get their receipts aired out in high definition. If you like your gossip with a side of exposé, go ahead and hit subscribe, because this isn't just another fashion story. It's the kind of scandal that makes you wonder how many other lies are stitched into that status symbol. And stick around, because what you're about to see might change the way you look at every luxury logo in your closet. He didn't start out wanting to cause a stir. In fact, the man behind the leak, an experienced Chinese manufacturer who once supplied leather goods for some of the world's top luxury houses, was just doing what he's done for years, making things by hand with skill, precision, and silence. But that silence snapped the moment he held a Hermès Birkin in one hand and his own cost ledger in the other. He ran the numbers, then he ran them again, and what stared back at him wasn't just a margin, it was a manipulation. The bag he helped produce, the one now sitting on a velvet pedestal in a boutique somewhere, guarded like it's radioactive, was created for a fraction of its retail price. Not half, not a third. Try less than 4%. So he did the unthinkable. He spoke up, not on a gossip blog, not to some fashion tabloid, but in a quiet, measured video meant to educate, not to attack. He calmly walked through the costs, line by line: leather, thread, lining, zippers, labor, packaging. No emotion, no drama. Just cold, exact figures from someone who knew the system from the inside out. And that apparently was the problem.
Watch this Chinese manufacturer break down the real cost of a Hermes bag.
One piece of Togo leather will cost 450 USD. The thread, the cost is 25 USD. The hardware will cost 150 USD. Edge oil. For each bag, it will cost 50 USD. The interior lining, for each bag, the cost will be 100 USD. And the zipper for one bag is 10 USD. The human resource cost will be 600 USD. Package, 10 USD. The total cost will be 1,400 USD.
Which is less than 3.7% of the bag's retail.
Because the moment the video started gaining traction online, flooding TikTok feeds, catching the eye of Reddit watchdogs, even raising eyebrows in certain fashion circles, everything changed. Emails stopped, calls went unanswered, contracts vanished, and behind the scenes, whispers began to swirl. He wasn't just some ex-supplier airing dirty laundry. He was now a threat to the very illusion luxury depends on. This wasn't a rogue comment or a disgruntled worker ranting. This was a veteran of the industry pulling back the curtain, revealing that what many believe to be handcrafted heirlooms might just be well-marketed mass production with a stitched-in fantasy. And that fantasy, it's not cheap to protect. Because while the public was busy sharing screenshots and reacting with disbelief, someone else was watching. And that someone was Hermes. At first, people didn't believe it. A $38,000 Hermes bag being made for just $1,395? It sounded too outrageous, even for the internet. But then the screenshots started circulating. The spreadsheet, the itemized list. The cold, unvarnished truth that broke the spell wide open. $450 for high-grade leather. $150 for polished hardware. $600 for skilled labor. The rest? Lining, edge oil, packaging, rounded out with a few dollars for the zipper and thread. That was it. No rare materials, no diamond accents, no gold stitching blessed by monks in the Alps. Just a bag, assembled with care, yes, but not remotely close to what the price tag suggested. What hit hardest wasn't the math. It was the betrayal. For customers who saved for years, who proudly walked out of Hermes boutiques with shopping bags clutched like trophies, the breakdown felt like a slap. They weren't paying for craftsmanship, they were paying for the idea of it. Luxury wasn't in the stitch, it was in the markup. A markup so steep, it could pay for a semester of college and still leave room for a second bag. And while the brand kept selling exclusivity, the internet turned the price tag into a punchline. Side-by-side graphics started trending, the breakdown next to the bag. TikToks with voiceovers like, "This costs more than my car," and less to make than my mattress. Reddit exploded with threads titled, "Hermès haute couture" or "high-class scam." It wasn't just a viral moment, it was a luxury reckoning. And in the middle of it all was a single PDF file from a man who never raised his voice, but shook an entire industry without saying a word. Hermes didn't post a statement, not yet. But behind their iconic orange boxes, the pressure was building. Because the numbers weren't just circulating, they were sticking. And the story was gaining speed, fast. And when prestige is priced this high, even the hint of fraudulence cuts deeper than any factory defect. For a brand that rarely flinches, Hermes moved fast. Quietly, of course. There were no dramatic press conferences, no fiery rebuttals on social media. Just a wave of subtle, calculated pressure, delivered behind closed doors with legal weight and corporate silence. Sources close to the manufacturers say the first response wasn't outrage. It was intimidation. Cease and desist. Violation of confidentiality. Breach of non-disclosure. The message was simple. Take it down, or we'll take you down. The whistleblower hadn't leaked design secrets. He hadn't stolen intellectual property. He'd shared numbers. Numbers that, apparently, were more damaging than any blueprint. And that was the tell. Because when a company fights harder to protect perception than production, it's not about defending craft. It's about preserving illusion. What started as a calm industry critique suddenly became a legal chess match. Hermes allegedly began probing contracts, hunting for technicalities, anything to paint the leak as malicious rather than revelatory. And while the brand stayed publicly silent, insiders say PR teams were scrambling behind the scenes, monitoring forums, flagging viral posts, and even reaching out to platforms to suppress the video's reach. But by then, the genie was out. The more they tried to bury the story, the more people dug in. Tweets turned into think pieces, comments turned into coverage. Fashion analysts, consumer watchdogs, even economists started weighing in, not just on the markup, but on the power games at play. Because this wasn't just about a bag anymore. This was about how far a billion-dollar brand would go to silence a man with a calculator. And the more Hermes tightened its grip, the more the public started to wonder, what else are they afraid we'll find out? They had built a brand on exclusivity, mystery, and control. Now all three were slipping. And with each legal threat, the cost of secrecy grew louder than the cost of the bag. And this is where the illusion really starts to unravel. Because when you strip away the lawsuits, the stitched logos, and the hand-delivered exclusivity, you're left with something much more powerful than leather and thread. You're left with fantasy, manufactured, marketed, and sold at a premium. Hermes doesn't just sell bags. They sell belonging, status. The quiet nod from across the room that says, "I made it." It's not about utility. It's not even about beauty. It's about mythology, the wait lists, the secret backroom appointments, the notion that some things are too elite to be bought. They must be earned. And that's the magic trick. Convincing the customer they're not being sold a product. They're being invited into a legacy wrapped in orange ribbon and reinforced by the likes of Victoria Beckham, Kylie Jenner, and every fashion editor who's ever gushed about timeless elegance, while posing with a bag the price of a down payment. But what this leak did, what it really did, was break the fourth wall. It reminded people that behind the velvet curtain is a spreadsheet. Behind the aura is a margin. And behind the sense of luxury is a well-oiled marketing machine that knows exactly how to sell aspiration dressed up as authenticity. When the cost breakdown went viral, it wasn't just a data point. It was a reality check, a wake-up call to everyone who ever believed that price always equaled quality. Because once you realize the leather isn't rare, the labor isn't magical, and the story is scripted, you start asking questions, not just about the bag, but about every brand that trades in illusion. Suddenly, the sparkle fades, the prestige dulls, and the dream you were sold starts to look more like a scheme. And if that fantasy cracks wide open under one cost sheet, what happens when the customers who bought into it start speaking up too? And that's when the spotlight turned. Because once Hermes was exposed, the question wasn't just, how could they do this? It became, who else is doing the exact same thing? The answer? Almost everyone. The luxury fashion industry isn't built on rarity. It's built on strategy. Behind the curtain of every limited edition drop, behind every whisper of only a few pieces worldwide, is often a carefully calculated marketing plan designed to manufacture desire, not scarcity. Brands that claim heritage, authenticity, and artisanal craftsmanship are often outsourcing to the same factories, using the same labor and cutting the same corners as mid-tier labels, while charging 10 times the price. Take a closer look at the tags. Made in Italy doesn't mean handcrafted in a Tuscan villa. It could mean assembled in a warehouse near Milan using globally sourced parts, overseen by a brand that knows full well their customer is buying the label, not the labor. It's not illegal. It's not even uncommon. It's just hidden in plain sight. And when one cost breakdown exposes that veil, it shakes more than just one brand. It shakes the entire foundation. Because now customers are starting to question the whole pyramid. If Hermes, the holy grail of handbags, can mark up a product by 2,500% and still sell out, what does that say about the rest of the market? What does it say about brands that pump out logo-covered goods made in bulk, slap a $2,000 tag on them, and call it accessible luxury? Or influencers who promote $900 sneakers as investments, while knowing full well the shoes cost $35 to manufacture and were made in the same facility as discount pairs? And then there's the resale game, a booming industry built on perceived value. But what happens when that perception starts to unravel? Suddenly, it's not just a Hermes story, it's a fashion industry reckoning. Because if one man with a spreadsheet can destabilize a luxury icon, imagine what could happen if consumers started demanding actual transparency. Imagine receipts, not just rituals, breakdowns, not just buzzwords. And imagine the panic behind the scenes in boardrooms filled with executives who know, deep down, that their biggest asset isn't the product. It's the belief system they've built around it. Belief that's now being questioned, audibly, publicly, and with receipts that won't go quietly. So here we are, one luxury bag, one whistleblower, one PDF file that sent shockwaves through the fashion world and cracked the pristine image of a brand that built its empire on silence, secrecy, and status. What began as a quiet reveal has turned into a global reckoning. Consumers are asking harder questions, influencers are retreating, resale values are wobbling, and Hermes, once the untouchable icon of elegance, is now nervously watching its mystique unravel in real time. Because the truth is out. The fantasy was priced at $38,000. The reality? Just $1,395. And one very inconvenient conscience. Maybe it was never about the leather, the stitching, or the exclusivity. Maybe luxury all along was just a well-lit illusion, propped up by perfect lighting, clever marketing, and the silence of people who knew better. Until one person finally spoke. If you found this exposé eye-opening, or if you've ever been seduced by a brand's promise only to learn the truth the hard way, make sure to like this video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to Chatter Fuse for more deep dives into celebrity scandals, luxury myths, and the stories they don't want you to hear. Because behind every polished logo, there just might be a price tag they hope you'll never read.